الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. مؤمنين مؤمنات, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we'll continue on with some masail or jurisprudential matters. We are in the section related to prayers, and specifically prayers of those who are traveling. So for the Salatul Musafir, in other words, or traveler, we did mention some of the issues related to prayers and people who are traveling in their prayers. A couple of more points about prayers while traveling. There is one very important point that was brought up in a private discussion after our last week's session, and that was about the fact that in other schools they do not consider it mandatory to shorten prayers while traveling. So in the school of Ahlul Bayt, obviously we believe if one is traveling, therefore their prayers are qasr or shortened. Qasr is from shortening, and traveling meaning when you leave your hometown, and we said the distance of the round trip should be around the 45 kilometers, or I think it would be about 25 miles if I'm not mistaken. So if the round trip is beyond that, therefore one is traveling. So they suggest that other schools do have, the question was, why is it that other schools do not believe that we have to, it's mandatory to shorten the salat while traveling? And the specific question came because of the ayah in the Holy Quran. So some of you may be familiar with the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you are traveling, ضربتم في الأرض فلا جناح عليكم. There is no لا جناح. I'll have to explain this, but we'll do a surface translation first. There's no problem, there's no issue with you to shorten salat and taqsuru min as-salat. So the question that arises is, if it is saying there's no issue, it doesn't mean that it's an obligation. It doesn't mean that we have to shorten our salat. Why is it that our imams, the imams of Ahlul Bayt, specifically Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, emphasized on the shortening? All of the imams, same thing. However, the Imam Sadiq alayhi salam had the opportunity to explain the rulings and also to respond to questions. So they say, why is it that in the school of Ahlul Bayt, you guys believe that we have to shorten our prayers when traveling? And similarly, when one is traveling in the school of Ahlul Bayt, we do not perform the siyam, fasting. So that has its own rules in terms of what time you travel, if you travel before Dhuhr or after Dhuhr, and so on. Nevertheless, a quick response, which was also given at the time of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, to this question and this concern, is that the Imam clearly used another ayah from the Holy Quran, answered that issue, that matter. He asked the people, he said, if you go to Umrah or Hajj, do you have to do the sa'i between Safa and Marwa? Sometimes you answer the question with a question in order to clarify, or in order to make a point that is a common thing. So the Imam said, when you go to Hajj or Umrah, do you have to walk between Safa and Marwa? And the one who asked the question, he said, yes, we have to. He said, but the Quran says, if you do Hajj or Umrah, فَمَنْ حَجَّ الْبَيْتَ أَوْ اعْتَمَرَ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِ أَن يَطَّوَّفَ بِهِمَا. That there is no problem or no issues with the person who does Hajj and Umrah to go and do sa'i between Safa and Marwa. And if we were to apply the same meaning into the ayah of the shortening of prayers, therefore it would be an obligation. And if we are to use the meaning of the shortening of prayers to say it's an optional, therefore sa'i between Safa and Marwa is optional. And nobody says sa'i between Safa and Marwa is optional. Therefore, the meaning applies that it is mandatory to shorten the salat. I mean, there are other ways of clarifying this matter, and why does it come in this format? In fact, the reason why between Safa and Marwa the format comes, there's no issue, is because some people came and questioned why are you doing sa'i between Safa and Marwa, despite the fact that in Jahiliyyah they had, in the ignorance era, they used to have some idols on Safa and some idols on Marwa. So some people thought that this became an idol worshipping culture, or it became part of the Jahiliyyah culture to walk between Safa and Marwa, and therefore the Quran said no, that's not an issue. Despite the fact that in Jahiliyyah they had the idols on Safa and Marwa, the two mountains or the two hills near the Kaaba, you have to do your sa'i between Safa and Marwa, and there are no issues with that. And so similarly with Salat of Qasr, people thought maybe there's an issue, there's a problem, and the question was answered in the Quran that there's no issue with shortening the prayers, and that doesn't mean that it's not an obligation. The Prophet and Ahlul Bayt clarified that it has to be shortened. Back to some of the masail. Before I move forward, any questions? Do we have any online questions or in-person questions? Yeah, so if there are any questions about Salatul Qasr or what we discussed, yeah.
They also don't require, if you're sick, you don't have to, when you're sick, you don't fast, right?
You don't fast.
They do.
Yeah.
Because I had a friend who was sick, and he was sick and traveling and fasting.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. So that's a good point. So just to clarify, so some people, even if they're sick, they don't believe that you can break your fast, and if you're traveling, they don't believe that you can break your fast. Some people make things difficult for themselves.
Cancer treatment.
Oh my goodness.
Fasting.
Yeah.
Flying to California, he was still fasting.
And still fasting. So. Yeah, subhanAllah. May Allah guide us all, inshallah. But yeah, it's important to keep in mind now, just as we mentioned this issue of fasting while sick. If sickness is going to affect the fasting person, then obviously it is not permissible. It becomes haram if it's going to have a negative effect, if it's harmful, basically. The ayah is amazing how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. God wants ease for you, He doesn't want difficulty for you. Some people take this part of the ayah out of context to suggest that God wants ease, not difficulty, therefore anything, whatever is convenient, whatever is comfortable, they basically dilute every ruling, every Islamic, every matter of Islamic law, they dismiss it with simply this ayah. And the response I often tell them is that fasting is a tough thing. And therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the same ayah says that when you are sick or traveling, you can do your fasting, you have to make up your fasting some other time. The same ayah says, when you're traveling or sick, فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ, meaning you do a number of other days. And then the ayah says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. God wants ease for you and not difficulty. In other words, there are rules, And there are also leeways. The fact that you couldn't fast it, you still have to make it up. That's not making things as easy as some people are suggesting. And fasting, which is difficult, is also an obligation, which means God does not want to basically not give any rulings. There are rules, and there are also some exemptions and leeways. Thank you for that comment. Regarding other rules with travelers, so we said a traveler who travels beyond a certain distance, and also regarding the if they're not in their home. So if you go from one city to another, and the other city that you go to is your home, meaning it's your second home, for instance, then you don't do qasr. While traveling, yes, but if once you reach your destination, then you don't shorten prayers. There is also another issue, which is intention to remain in a place while traveling for a certain number of days. So I'll give some examples and it'll become clear. If I'm going from here to, say, Miami, I'm a traveler. When I reach Miami, I decide I'm staying in Miami for 10 full days. If I can make an intention that I would stay in a place for 10 full days, meaning 10 days where I can pray Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, 10 full days, therefore in that place I am no longer considered a traveler who shortens prayers and breaks their fast. But it has to be 10 full days. So some people ask me, what if I arrive there on day number 1 and I depart on day number 10? Do I count those days? If you arrive before Fajr of day number 1 and you depart after Isha of day number 10, yes, that is 10 days. But if you cannot count 10 full days of prayers, then it does not count. So 9 days, it does not count. 9.5 days does not count. It has to be 10 full days, Fajr to Isha. Another issue with a traveler. So again, with an example. Yeah.
So it's Fajr to Isha, not the hours of the...
Not the hours. Yeah, Ahsant. Yeah, it's not the hours. A very good point. So you count the 10 days based on their prayers. So if you arrive before Fajr, and you complete until Isha of the... Now what if you arrive before Dhuhr? If you are staying until after that also, basically 10 full days starting from Dhuhr. So you've done Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, till the 10th set of Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr. Then you count 10 days as well. So as long as you have completed 10 full days of prayers, therefore you count. It's not based on the hours. So if you arrive at a certain hour, then you count the hours. By the way, back in the day, they didn't have those hour things, the exact hour, a minute thing. So the ruling is based on the prayers. Okay, if you arrive before Asr, before Dhuhr, before Fajr, and so on. Yeah.
So just to clarify, so let's say I arrive to Toronto
Yeah.
10 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
and 10 days is passed.
Mm-hmm.
When can I leave on the 10th day? When can I leave? I have to leave at 10 a.m. or at wait till Zuhr, and then...
So on that day, you did not pray Dhuhr and Asr in Toronto.
On the day that I arrived?
Yeah. You prayed, but you did not pray Fajr.
No.
So by the time you've done a full, yeah, but if you've done Fajr, so you don't have to wait for 10 o'clock. As soon as you pray Fajr, you can leave.
Okay.
If you're leaving after Fajr,
Right.
it's not about when you can leave, it's about your intention. So let's say, yeah.
Complete the cycle.
Exactly, yeah. So if, let's say for instance, you knew that you're leaving on day number 10, then you figure it out. Am I leaving before Fajr or after Fajr? I'm leaving after Fajr, I'm good to go. That's okay. No problem. And then the other thing is, if I cannot make an intention, so I arrived in Toronto, Miami, wherever I'm traveling to, I arrived at a certain date, and I don't know how long I'm staying. I took a one-way ticket or drove there, and I'm not sure how long I'm staying in that place. Then 10 days passed. Do I pray qasr or full? Do I fast if if it's a month of Ramadan, or if I want to do mustahab fast? No, you cannot, unless you're able to start a 10-day intention from that date, not from the beginning. So 10 days passed, 9 days, let's say 5 days later, I decide, you know what, I'm staying until the 10th day. Do I start, can I make an intention then? No. It has to be from, so you arrived on the 1st of the month, okay? And you're not sure when you're leaving. And then on the 5th of the month, you knew that you're staying at least until the 10th. Do I count 10 days because I was there from the 1st? No. You would have to stay, you would have to know that you would stay until the 15th, for example. Okay, so from then you have to count 10 days from then. Similarly, if it was 10 days already, and you cannot make an intention for another 10 days, you cannot pray, you're still a traveler, you're still a musafir. Until it reaches 30 days. If 30 days continue in that state of doubt and basically instability, it's a traveler who is unstable. He's in a state of instability. As long as he is still in that state, he cannot make that 10-day settlement, intention. He's a traveler. He or she is a traveler. However, if 30 days pass, then they start fasting as someone who's settled, and they start praying as someone who is settled. Even if they were going to stay for another 2-3 days, they cannot make an intention of 10 days. They're only staying for 2-3 days, or not, they're not sure. Regardless, if after 30 days they pray as usual and fast as usual. I think that suffices for that. And any questions? Yes.
I have some patients where they're guilted into fasting, like they have medicine they have to take 3 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
They'll skip their noon dosing,
Yeah.
even though that means they might have a stroke or their blood sugar is 500. But because people, humans, have guilted them into have to fast no matter what. And I've had pregnant women that they're anemic. And the GYN says this is very harmful. You're following in this road and you're not drinking. It's 100 degrees outside. And the family says it's all in Allah's hands.
Oh, okay.
This is Allah's hands and this is human hands.
Yeah, that's a good question. So back to the issue of fasting while sick or while exempt in some way. Some people may, I'm just repeating it for the people who did not hear, especially at home, or who are not here with us. If somebody is excused because they're sick and they have to take medicine, then they should not be fasting. Who determines that? Between the individual and their physician. So physician has a major say there, and sometimes the individual. Sometimes the doctor says, if it depends how you feel. Okay, the doctor says if you can handle it. For example, somebody who's got, say, some sort of a stomach ulcer, that they need to keep something in their stomach. Yet the doctor says, if you can handle it, if you feel like you're well enough and you're not getting, sick or nauseous or something, then that's fine. Other times the doctor says, no, what you're doing is going to cause long-term problems for you, or it could cause a stroke, or it could cause a problem. You cannot do it. You should not be doing it. In which case, then they should not be doing it. Pregnant ladies. Some people think pregnant or nursing moms should not be fasting. Some people think they should try, as you said, feel guilty, and they should do it no matter what. And it's neither of those extremes. If the mother feels well enough and her tests are good, she does not have any anemia or any issues, blood sugar, imbalances and all, sometimes they face these things as well. So if she is well enough to do it and she feels well enough, the doctor does not warn about fasting, for example, then she can and she should try in that situation. And if she does not feel well enough, or the doctors tell her don't do it, it's harmful, then obviously she should not be doing it. I understand that sometimes culture affects an individual in that situation, and I think what we need to work on is raising awareness and education. This is why we are told at the time of the Imam of our time, Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, there would be so much knowledge that even housewives who are not, students of seminaries and so on, would be jurists. So we need to get there. And it's not going to be a miracle. And I think part of, we're seeing signs of that with the information technology. I have suggested this before, but I urge mu'mineen and mu'minat not to cut off the video. Now you can ask questions to even AI, okay, ChatGPT or whatever, and you get pretty good answers. I am not saying that you should rely on that and get all your answers, but you can learn quite a bit through that. And obviously when it's a jurisprudential matter, you need to clarify that with your scholars or maraja and so on. In some theological matters, one needs to clarify, but in a lot of these dilemmas and issues that people face, you get pretty good answers. I have tried it several times and I have gotten very good responses. I use it as a trial when people send me questions, and I get very, very nice responses, elaborate too. So I think in the future, and as we go forward, there would be a lot more education, and so we'll face a lot less of these matters. As more parents, on many levels, this is just an example. This is one area. We have many other levels of ignorance and culture that is affecting people's lives and their lifestyle that should be changed, and some consider it religious. They assume it's religious and they put that religious label to it, and it becomes holy something. That's I don't want to say the other word, but yeah. I think that suffices for this session. Inshallah, we'll have the youth session. We have time, inshallah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alihi Muhammad.